Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Hope you all have a great day. It's my honor to be here again on another episode on this podcast with the great and the amazing Adil Amarsi, copywriter. Hello, Adil. How are you? How's your day?
Hey, I'm really good. Day's going pretty good. And just wanted to correct, I'm a former copywriter. I'm actually more of a consultant and teacher now. So I don't
Okay.
write for clients anymore.
Okay, and amazing. So today we are here to talk about the psychology of a buyer, Adil. And tell me your definition for psychology of buyer psychology.
It's understanding what makes someone say yes and really understanding how someone can go from really meeting you for the first time to feeling like they've known you for a lifetime to exchanging value with you in one way or another, whether that's giving you their name and email address or that's buying something from you. So it's basically understanding the psychology of what makes someone say yes.
That's amazing. So why do you think study buyer psychology is important?
If you don't do this, then essentially what you're doing is making life a lot more difficult for yourself. Like, I'll give you an example of this. If you don't know how to sell and don't know what makes your audience say yes, by the way, there's ethics to this. You can obviously do this in a negative way, manipulate people, get them to say yes, and they'll feel terrible about it, and so will you. And people can say, no, I won't feel terrible. Your conscience will get the better of you because at the very base of who we are, we're good people. Like, just humans are good, and it'll keep you up at night. So, especially if you're just in business. So understanding buyer psychology on that level of importance, the reason it's there is because it helps you understand how to sell more of your products, your services, who you are, in a way that's ethical and friendly to your people. So they actually know who you are, what you stand for, and why they need to do business with you.
That's amazing. So can you tell me a little bit about this, about buyer like purchase decision process? Because so you know that there's a very big connection between what a buyer think and their decision.
Yes,
so
massively.
Tell me a little bit about this process.
So John Carlton used to say this best, and that's where I learned it from. Basically, it was this idea is like there's two reasons people buy: the reason they'll tell you and the reason they need to tell their wife.
Nice.
The reason is basically you need to give them enough reasons in the advertisement that you make that they need to justify the purchase to someone else. Like, why did I just spend X amount of $1,000 or hundreds of dollars on this thing instead of something else? Well, they need to be able to have the argument and have all the reasons why to say, yes, this is why I spent that money. This is the reason why I went down this path. This is why I'm right and you're not. Like, my justification is that. But on the inside as well, on the flip side, people need to be able to justify it themselves. So you can sell with logic. You want to walk the line between selling with logic and selling with emotion. Now, for a long time, a lot of people use this thing called twisting the knife, which is what they do is they basically go right after the pain points of your emotional being of who you are and say that you suck until you buy something from me. Like, your life will continue being horrible until you buy the thing I'm telling you to buy, which worked to some degree. But now buyer psychology and market sophistication has changed. And because of that, people are now becoming wary of that. When they see something like that, they go, oh, this person's manipulating me. And it basically turns them away from you. So the new way of doing it, or at least the new way of doing it, is essentially creating a process where people are happy to give you their money, but more so they're happy to do it in a way that doesn't make them feel shitty. So a really good example of this would be, why would someone listen to this podcast? Well, quite simply, the logic side of this is it'll make you a better writer, make you a better advertiser, and more importantly, allow you to build long-term ethical profits within your business and the people you serve. Now, emotionally, that actually, what's the benefit to that? You can look at the emotional benefit to it is that it becomes easier. You don't feel as stressed out. People now gravitate towards you. They make life a lot simpler for you. They say good things about you. Once you understand how to like move that line between the two processes of emotion and logic, which by the way comes in the process of the story, you essentially figure out how to get under people's skin and relate to them on a much more deeper level. And once you've got that in place, it becomes so much simpler to make money. And again, you sleep better at night.
That's true. 100%. I agree with that.
It's also the same reason I'm not a fan of like you've seen it with supplements and stuff like that, where people will sell supplements and they make up a story that's not really real and sounds really crazy. That works to some degree, but you got to make it real to another degree. Like I always tell people, you will sell more of your product by telling the truth than you will telling a lie.
True.
Yeah,
that's true.
Because it's more believable.
That's true. So how do you think understanding this process can help entrepreneurs or marketers to target,
or salespeople
to target their audiences better.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, think about it this way. You're meeting people where they are. The thing I always tell people, you want to use an 80-20% rule. So 80% is pleasure, empathy-driven advertising. 20% allows that pain to come in. And that pain basically comes in the process of your own story. So I'll give you an example of this. Let's say there's a health supplement that helps people that have IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and they've got a really bad gut and stuff like that. And by the way, the big cause for that a lot of the times is stress, and people don't realize this. And again, as someone that's gone through this, I can speak about it. So if I was to say this from the perspective of like 80% pain and 20% pleasure, it would be like, your life's going to get worse. Your gut's only going to deteriorate until you start taking the supplement. Your life's only going to feel horrible. You're going to lose your energy. You're never going to be able to go outside anymore and enjoy life, because when you do, you don't know if you're going to poop yourself or if you're going to just fart. You really don't know what's going to happen. Do you really want to live with that chance? So do you see the biopsychology is very much like, oh shit, no, it's very much, oh God, fear. Whereas if you flip it around and go, I remember when I went through this process at 21, the doctor told me that I need to wait for this thing to develop into something that would be much worse. Unfortunately, it could have gone one of two ways. It could have gone to ulcerative colitis, or its badass big brother that's also evil, Crohn's disease, which means that the doctors that were supposed to help heal me were now letting me get to a point where I would need to have a part of my gut removed and have a colostomy bag to make sure that I can go out anywhere. Yeah, it would give me some range of freedom, but the problem is now my life is impeded because I don't have a certain percentage of my gut anymore because it's rotted. What I did during my research is start to realize that I could actually reverse the effects of IBS and stop it before it got too far. But this is things doctors didn't want to tell you because they themselves hadn't researched what there was, and they didn't have the time to put in the funding to find out what worked for them. In fact, they were just so busy trying to treat so many things that they couldn't treat this. And again, this is like what I'm doing is I'm removing the blame from the doctors by saying, look, it's not their fault. But it's not my fault either. I'm taking responsibility for what I found. And I went out and did my research. I did my own stuff. I looked at myself, and I started to realize that I could help heal myself. And then I started to help other people. I could help heal inside a Facebook group that I was in. There was a support community. And before I knew what was going on, I had more and more people asking me to come up with a way of like commercializing this cure to help, like this quote unquote cure to help. I actually can't say the word cure, but it's like help them commercialize this treatment that would help them reverse the effects they had from ulcerative colitis or IBS, and essentially get back to a point where they go out and they didn't have to fear about whether or not they were going to poop themselves or fart. They knew exactly how far they can go out. They knew exactly what foods triggered them. They knew exactly what their body needed without having to go through the medical and pharmaceutical industry. So they essentially took back control of their own health, their own energy, and they had a way of finding what would work out best for them. So do you see like how you have such difference in comparison there? I'm telling you my story, but I'm meeting you where you are. If you're someone that's gone through that, I'm telling you, I've been where you are. This is the pain I went through. Mm-hmm. Don't go through my same pain.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So that's why it's impactful. So sorry, just to go into this, to answer your questions, like why is that relevant and how does it help? Well, because you're meeting people where they are and letting them basically see your journey is where they currently are as well. It's like, this person's been where I am. Because let me ask you a really simple question. Yeah. Do you relate more with people that have the same experience as you, or do you relate more with people that don't know what the hell you're going through?
Of course, with those people who have the same experience. So I'm going to tell them, hey, I have been through this. I have been down there. I'm always telling them because I'm a high performance coach. And like, you know what? Yeah. I have been there. I have been down there. And I know what it looks like, how it feels. So I don't want you to be there.
Yeah.
That's it. So the point is here, you are asking them how much it costs you to stay in the situation. That's it.
You can say that, but even then I have a different way of positioning that. Mm-hmm. Because the soft way of positioning it that really works on an empathic scale is by going, instead of like, how much is it going to cost you being there? Because that kind of can be seen as something. What you'd switch that around to is like, imagine what your life would look like if you didn't have those issues.
Exactly.
Now I'm going to show you how to get there by simply taking this treatment and following this process that I've created for you because it works. It's something I've helped so many other people do. Yeah. And here's how you get started. So I paint the benefits and the advantages to having those benefits. So I never go back to like, your life is going to suck exactly how it is until you change. It's going to be, you can either choose to take this on board with someone that's gone through the process that you have, or you can decide to do it by yourself. The reality is it's up to you. And this is a powerful selling point, by the way. I read this years ago, and the conversion rate went through the freaking roof with just this one sentence. And there's more to it, but it builds out to this idea, which is, I can't remember who said this. It was that long ago. It was in a book, and it was basically like, whether you decide to take action today or not is entirely your choice. What you're doing there is I've given you all the information, I've given you all the reasons why to get this, but it's up to you to make that decision. Or to quote Morpheus from The Matrix, I can only show you the door, you must walk through it. And again, there's no manipulation behind this. There's no negative feeling, because when someone goes, you know what, I can't buy right now because I don't have the money, they'll bookmark that page and come back. They'll start sending people to you later down the line. Like, you know what, there's this guy, I think you should go check him out because he's completely good. Or there's this girl that's absolutely brilliant what she does.
That's true.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, short money, but long term, it really pays dividends. And you actually create a brand that's respectable.
That's right. That's right. So what is the importance of this process, understanding this process for the mindset of the seller? Like, because it can help the seller, the entrepreneur, the business owner, to not be stressed that much. Because if you understand how your buyer think, and how is the process that the buyer is going through, you might not be that much stressed. Yeah.
It helps you basically take it this way. If you knew how let's just put it this way, and let's change the scenario from business to dating, because dating is one of the most easiest ones to really look at and how it all works. If you know what gets someone that you're interested in to like you, you know exactly what the conversation needs to be, you know what commonalities you have, it's so much simpler to get them to say yes to go on a date with you. Versus if someone has a completely different value set, it becomes very, very difficult for you guys to actually bond. Like, say, for instance, you're all about open communication, being really happy, liking cuddles, very much into physical touch. And they're like, don't touch me. I don't ever want to be around you. I don't want to kiss you. It's not my thing. Do you think that relationship is really going to last? It's not. It's going to fall apart very quickly because they're not on the same page. They're not on the same wavelength. Whereas if you can communicate effectively with that person that you're really into, that has the same values, and you find that out, you'll now listen to them and they'll listen to you, because there's an exchange of thought process and you're coming from the same place. So as the seller, understanding your buyer's psychology allows you to better communicate who you are, what you do in their language. So essentially you're reframing your story to fit their perception, but you're doing it in a way that's ethical and truthful. Yeah, so that's basically how it basically benefits is, to answer the question directly, how does it benefit them? Well, quite simply, you're able to communicate more effectively and people actually know, like, and trust you better.
Yeah. So that's how the communication skill, that's what I wanted to ask you, how communication skills really work in this. That's how it works.
Yeah.
So
it's really that simple.
So what are those ways that you can recommend to an entrepreneur or to someone to understand the buyer psychology? Because you know that for me, as a business owner, for you, for someone else, how can we understand buyer psychology? What are those ways that we can use to understand their psychology?
Like, how can you start really understanding someone's psychology? Well, there's really a lot of steps that you can go with this. And the easiest thing you can do, my buddy Ryan Levesque, years and years and years and years ago, came up with this idea called the ask method. Now, the ask method isn't really new, because years ago, about 10 years ago, 2011, 2012, there's a guy called Rob Jones who developed a piece of software that allowed you to actually make multivariant testing for affiliate programs. So someone would come in, they'd answer a bunch of questions like, am I new? Am I intermediate? Am I advanced? Do I have this budget, that budget, or the other budget? How big's my mailing list, or am I beginning? And wherever they went through would actually send them to a product to buy. Essentially create a survey to figure out exactly where someone is. Then me and my business partner at the time, Pat Flynn, completely different, Pat Friedel, not Pat Flynn. Pat Flynn has a whole different business person, but Pat Friedel and I came up together with something called CPA Crusher. And CPA Crusher was then renamed to Pre-Sell Crusher. And Pre-Sell Crusher basically was all about a WordPress plugin that allowed you to create quizzes. And those quizzes will allow you to figure out exactly where someone needs to go to get the right CPA offer, the right affiliate program. Similar to Rob, but a little bit more in depth and a little bit easier to develop. Then Ryan came along with the ask method, which is essentially using quizzes as a way of doing this, which is why I was like, hell yes, this is really brilliant. The ways I actually develop this, it works. at a high level, because what you're doing now is you're qualifying and realizing where your audience is, what they want, and how they get there. Surveys have been around for years. This is just another way of actually utilizing it and making it simple. Once you know what people want and how they want to get it, you now just speak to them and communicate with them. And if you really want to take this to another level, and this is something we did in door-to-door sales years and years and years ago, is you'd find your best 5 to 10 customers and you'd interview them. My friend Travis Houston and his wife Joy, they had this amazing way of doing it. Shout out to those guys at Super Funnel, I think is what it's called. But what they would do is they would sit down and they would interview their last 5 to 10 clients and go, what made you say yes? What was it about that we could have done better? And they asked them a series of questions. And once they understood these empathic questions that were being asked, they turned all their marketing towards answering these questions. So it would only attract the type of people that qualified. And that's essentially how you find out. You find out exactly why your audience bought from you, what it is they did, why they did it, what their objections were, what their fears were, what their pleasures were. Basically, you figure out as much as you can about them by interviewing them. And then you go out there and test. If you're someone that doesn't have the ability to do this, then go on your Facebook, go on your social media profile where like most of your audience is and start asking questions. And you'll start to realize what goes on. On my social media profile, a lot of people don't know this, I'll ask really ridiculous questions. Like the one I put up the other day from when we're filming this was, are you using your real name? Like when you're marketing, do you use your full name or do you use just part of it? Like for me, I only use the first 4 letters of my full name because it's easier to pronounce in the West. And even then they mess that up. But anyway, what I'm getting at here is that lets me know that my audience values authenticity, truth, and practice. That lets me know how they want me to communicate with them. It could also be, what's your favorite movie? And when someone tells me what their favorite movie is, I can make assumptions about what type of things they like and what type of things they dislike. And again, people try to be as unique as possible, but we all fit into a category. That's the reason we have social hierarchies. It's the reason we have the 16 personalities, DISC method, you name it, we basically have it. The reason is because we're categorizing people based on what we know they like, and trust about them, how they actually communicate and interact in the world. By understanding this, and yes, it is a pain in the ass to do at times, but the reality is once you understand this, it is so much easier to just fire it off whenever you want. And it's the reason why I say when I was a copywriter, this is what made me stand out from everyone else. It's the reason I worked in over 400 plus markets, did over 16,700 plus campaigns, and won a lot of them. I think I only have like 500 losses to my name, which is amazing to me, but still. And that was simply because I can go into any marketplace and go, okay, who am I dealing with? I know the buyer psychology. I don't need to sell the product to them and know why the product's advantages are. Of course, that's good to know what the benefits and advantages of the product is, whether it's supplements, vacuum cleaners, of course, whatever. But the reality is, if I knew who the person was and what they were buying and why they were buying, it made life a lot simpler. Or to quote Harvey Specter from Suits, don't play the odds, play the man.
That's amazing.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that goes in. Like a lot of these books behind me are just all like psychology books.
Amazing. So you pointed to something I was always like looking at your questions in your profile and was like, why does Manus ask him this question, for example, about the movie?
Yeah. It's because it's telling me who you are.
Exactly. So
it's telling me what you value.
So tell me, what is your favorite movie?
Ooh, I have way too many. It's like I have a list of like lists and lists of different movies. But it depends. Like if someone said to me, what's my favorite movie when I'm sad? What makes me happy? I have 5 movies I always watch whenever I feel happy to make me happy. And that's Zoolander, Bill and Ted, the first Bill and Ted movie, which is Most Excellent Adventure, which is excellent. There's another a very unknown movie called Undercover Brother, very underrated, really funny, from the 2000s, quite funny as it is. And there's like movies like John Wick, or any of John Wick movies, because they make me happy because they're mindless violence and quite fun to watch. Or even definitely maybe one of my favorite rom-com movies of all time. And yes, I do love rom-coms. A lot of people don't know that about me, but I'm a huge fan for them.
That's great. So let's just move to some other types of questions, if you don't mind.
So, of course, ask whatever.
So tell me, you talked about like, what are those movies that you might watch when you're sad or when you're something like, when you're down, feeling down, you know? So you said when you was a business, like when you was a copywriter. So now what do? Like you're not a copywriter anymore?
No, what I do is I actually mentor copywriters and I help them with their business. So I critique their work, I move them out there, and I consult for businesses. So businesses would hire me and go, hey, I have this idea. What do you think? And my special power is copywriting is now a language to me where I can just verbalize copy while I'm speaking. So someone can ask me a question like, oh, yeah, so this is how I'd actually do this. And I'd verbalize the whole thing to them. And they're like, holy crap, did you just verbalize an entire marketing campaign? I was like, yeah, get it transcribed. You now have a letter in front. Really, you just need to edit slightly and it's good to go. Because this is how my brain works. But also on top of that, now what other stuff I do is I have my mentoring program, as I mentioned, but I also have my course. I have a new blog coming out in January with another podcast because we're retiring my current show. So essentially, I'm just doing all I can to put myself back out there because for the longest time, I've kind of been very quiet. And my business partner, Shiv, yells at me for this all the time. He's like, Adil, for the love of God, you have more results than anyone else I know. And you just play it off. And he told me off of this yesterday. Because I have such a high standard, what I consider a good sales piece and a good campaign. I was like, yeah, my client made like $500,000 last year because of this, but it was terrible. It was shit. Should have done better. And they was like, what are you on about? Like someone making $500,000 in a year because of something you did is incredible. I was like, yeah, but to me, that's not. Like, come to me when that's like $1 million, 2 million, 10 million. Like, then I'll consider that a win. And they're like, dude, you just lower the expectation in the bar and just tell everyone how you get there because that's not normal.
I agree with that. So tell me, in your journey, like when did you start this journey?
Oh, okay. Wow. So this is a long one. So my origin story. Oh, I love this. All right. So I started writing professionally when I was 18. But the reality is I've actually been doing this a lot longer than people realize. So I actually started writing ads when I was 12 years old. And before that, I basically learned how to sell from the time I was 5. And the reason basically being is when I was 5 years old, and anyone worth their psychology will tell you this, that children don't develop a conscious brain until they are 7. Your brain is unconscious matter. It basically picks everything up. It forms your personality, which is the reason why in many places they actually tell you to read to your kids, speak different languages to your kids. That's the reason they can pick those skills up so quickly, is because it's unlimited potential. It's untapped. It's all impulse. After the age of 7, it starts to basically form into a pattern, and that's who you become. When I was 5 years old, my dad was paralyzed from the waist down. My dad, may he rest in peace. He was 5. When I was 5, I basically watched my dad not being able to walk for 2 years. And again, which is a miracle in its own sense, because he should never have been walking after the age of, like, after those 2 years, and he was walking. He walked all the way until the day he passed. And the reason was, sorry, not the reason, but the whole idea that I bring this up is because when I was 5 years old, I have an older sister, and we used to fight about what to watch on TV, whether it was Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon. And I was 5, so I was like, cartoons, clearly 5-year-old. So I came up with this idea that I'd sit next to my dad and watch whatever he was watching. And then the moment he moved, I could change the channel and no one can get mad at me. So my dad liked watching a show called 15 to 1, which is all about trivia, like random trivia, which is why I like random trivia. The second was another show called Countdown, which is all about words and numbers and that kind of thing. And the third was he also liked watching the news, of course, propaganda's there as it is. But the fourth one, which is the most important, my dad had a thing for watching QVC and the Home Shopping Channel for 2 hours a day. I have no idea why that man enjoyed watching pitches, but he would watch sales pitches for like 2-3 hours a day, 6 days a week. So like for 2 years of my life, that all I was being influenced was by these things on a daily basis, all because I wanted to watch cartoons. So unconsciously, I was learning how to sell from Billy Mays and a few other pitchmen back in the day, and I had no idea why. I remember I was 8 years old, and I figured out the best way that I can get my mom to let me play on my PlayStation was by waiting until she was on the phone to my auntie and then go annoy the hell out of her. So she'd just get rid of me. So she'd say, yes, go play on your PlayStation, which would annoy my cousins and my sister. But I was like, Mom said I could. One day, my mom pulled me aside. She goes, you little manipulator. I was like, well, she goes, you're such a manipulator. You do this so negatively. I never took that as a negative. I saw that. I was like, oh, that's so cool. Because I didn't know what one was. Fast forward to me at 12 years old. Again, this is something a lot of people don't know. And now actually is confirmed as of 2021. I'm actually high functioning autistic. I didn't know that I was autistic, which is really interesting to me. It makes a lot of sense, especially with my brain being ADHD as it is. Again, both diagnoses came this year. I use them as like, they're prideful because they actually make sense to how my brain is mapped differently to other people, and actually helps me understand the world a little bit better, because now I'm not beating myself up as much as I used to. Like, oh my God, I'm so terrible. It's like, no. Your brain just works like different. You need to do other things to recharge it, which is fine. But at the age of 12, no one really knew this. And goodness, I'm very grateful for this. They didn't diagnose me at that age, because it would have really fucked up my school life and fucked up the rest of my life. Excuse if I'm swearing on this, but yeah, it is. So when I was 12 years old, my parents, so I was going from year 6 to 7, which is like, I think, like it's primary school to secondary school in the UK. I don't know what that is. And I think it's like junior school to like middle school before you go to high school in like the US. It really just depends where you're at. But I was basically 11 years old, turning 12. And my parents were being pulled into the parents-teacher conference one day. And they were like, your son's very clever. He has a lot of things to do, but he's very slow when he writes. Like he'll start writing, he'll make a mistake. And instead of just crossing it out like a normal child, he'll rip the page out and start again on the other page, because it had to look pretty. It had to look right. If it was wrong, I didn't want to do it. So I was like a perfectionist about this, about everything. And then like my dad could walk again. By the time I was 7, my dad was walking again, which is brilliant. It's a miracle in its own self. And then I remember basically around that time, I went to secondary school. And for the first year there, like during that 1 year, like between ages 11 and 12, during that 1 year period, my dad basically used to get me to write stories every single day. And he was like, you got to write stories daily. And I was terrified of my dad. So of course I basically would write stories every single day. And I would just like write about anything. So I'd go to his office, I'd write about whatever I could, I'd give it to him, and I'd go home. And then of course my parents separated like 2003. They separated for like 2 years. So in that time period, my mother and I and my sister, we moved to another part of the city that I grew up in, which meant my school commute went from like 30 minutes a day, like 20 to 40 minutes there and back, depending on how fast I was walking or if I was running, to 2 hours a day. So basically 1 hour each way on a bus. And I was very shy, so I wouldn't really be around other people. Believe it or not, I was a very quiet child. Like I was very soft-spoken, wouldn't really interact with many people.
I was the opposite completely.
No, I was quiet. I didn't want to get in trouble. That was my thing. I never wanted to get in trouble. So I'd always like hide bits and pieces of myself. Like a friend of mine, he passed away last year in April, but he's actually the reason why I have the sense of humor that I do today, is because he's the one that let me just be myself and accept. He was the first person to accept me for me and went, oh, you're funny. You need to do more of this. So as I got older, I became funny and I just ended up being myself. But around this time period, when I was 12 to 13 years old, I got into 4 things that were very, very, very influential for me. So the first one was 9/11 had just happened like a couple of months prior to this, like 6 months prior. And it's a tragedy, but being a brown kid in the West, it became like hell on earth for you. Like you got bullied, you got teased, whatever it was. So that helped me develop comedy as a coping mechanism. I was really into hip hop and R&B, so I became a battle rapper. So I used to battle rap for fun and write music and actually hang around with my friends because they used to battle rap too. It was like a thing we did as friends. The third, I've always been interested in movies and stories, so I used to write poetry as well. That was the other thing. And the fourth, so I got into shape, so I started playing basketball, but then I got that weird thing that happened when I was 13. I got stabbed. That was the thing I don't tell people, is I got stabbed at the age of 13 by one of the kids in the new neighborhood I was living in. There was a whole reason for that anyway. And what that did was basically put me into Thai boxing classes. So I fell in love with martial arts. And people think like, why the hell, what's this have to do with writing? We're getting to it. You'll see how it all develops into its own thing. So years go by, and like, again, my commute goes from like 40 minutes or like 20 to 40 minutes to 2 hours. And all I was left with was a notepad, a pen, and an hour bus ride. And I'd maybe make a friend here and there, or if I was by myself, I'd just, do my own thing. So I'd end up writing. I'd just spend hours writing poetry. I'd spend hours writing stories for my dad's company. And I just keep doing this daily because I had to hand these things in every single week. Because they wanted me to have speed in my handwriting. Unfortunately, my handwriting went from very clean to very doctor-like, so you could barely read at times. And yeah, that just basically was kind of the spark of creativity I had. And then when I was 18, I got into network marketing with my business, with like my upline. And about 6 months in, that all fell apart as it was. And then I ended up like going online to try and do something with like digital marketing. Back in the day, we didn't know what it was. It was just internet marketing with like MLMs and anything you could find. And then before I knew it, I started going to these seminars. I became friends with some of the speakers. I ended up going to the green room because I was working at one of the events. They were like, hey, what are you good at? I'm like, I'm 18, 19 at this point, and they're like, what are you good at? Because they took pity on me because I was a young kid in a room full of adults, and they were like, wow, you're actually getting it. We wish we could help you. So they would open the doors and just help me. And they asked me, what are you good at? And I was like, well, I'm terrible at running traffic, but I had 10 people read my blog post and 7 of them gave me money. I know that's terrible, right? And they were like, what are you on about? That's terrible. That's incredible. You did like 70% conversion rate. That's incredible to what you do. I was like, sorry about the camera dying out there for a second. I was like, yeah, they were like, that's incredible. I was like, oh, okay. They're like, you're a natural copywriter. I was like, what the hell's a copywriter? They're like, you get paid to write advertising. People would kill for your skills. So instead of like, they were like, people pay upwards of $10,000 to do this and blah, blah, blah. I did not have the confidence to charge that. In fact, I didn't have the confidence to charge that for about 10 years. So I charged less than 10 grand. I remember one of my first gigs I got, I charged $500 to do the front end, the upsell, the second upsell, the downsell, 5 emails, and the landing page. Literally $500 to do all of this. And I used to get it done in like 48 hours. Wow. So like from start to finish, I'd be able to knock them out. And this gave me a lot of speed because I realized I wrote faster than most people. I'd get it out. I'd make mistakes like hell because I found out like a year later I had dyslexia. So that made sense. And I just kept running with everything. In fact, business was my saving grace from a lot of the other stuff that was going on in my life that basically kept me concentrated. I learned how to do door-to-door selling at this point while still writing. I started to get successes behind me. Like one of the biggest ones I had was a client of mine hired me because they took pity on me. They paid me like £3,000 or like $5,000, $6,000 at the time, plus 3% of whatever I brought in the first week. When I finally finished writing the ad and sent it to them, it was a £15,000 program or like $30,000 at the time. It's like 2008, 2009. They did $6 million in the first week. And I got $150,000 from that as my paycheck. That was basically what I got paid. And I remember going, holy shit, there's actual money to be made here. I wish I could say that I invested my money wisely. I didn't. I paid off other people's debts. I tried to get things right, blah, blah, blah. Before I knew it, the money was gone. And I kept working. It wasn't about the money. It was about the skills. It was about basically making everything work in my favor and making sure that I could do things. That's all it was. It's like, could I really make this work in a much better way?
You told me a lot of things like from childhood, whatever we are going through, it just leads us to where exactly we're meant to be. I was on another podcast with another lady. So that lady asking me where and how this journey started for me. So, and I was like, I thought of for a minute, and I was like, I think it started when I was a child. Like, I never thought about this really, for the fact, like, I was like, it might have started like a few years ago when I started my first business. But when I thought about her question, and I was like, no, it started when I was a child. When I really wanted to, because I was born and raised in Iraq, in a very small town in Iraq. And when in a town that has been bombarded chemically by Iraqi regime, and more than 10,000 people have died in my city. So yeah. I was raised there, and everyone was feeling miserable, negative. You barely find a positive person in the city I was grown up.
Yeah.
Because of all these things that they have been through. So whatever I was dreaming and whatever I was thinking about to live and have a different life, they were like, that's a dream. I was saying that's my dream. They were like, exactly, that's a dream. You can't make it come true. So I was thinking about that everything starts from a point, and it was my childhood, because I said, I don't want to live the same life. I want to do something different. I want to live a different life, but I didn't know how. It was taking me through several things. And when you told me that back to 18, right? When you started writing ads.
Yeah.
When I was 18, I was fucking broken. I was broken because I have been through an arranged marriage, an arranged engagement from my family and everyone. They did it they arranged the marriage for me, and I had to go through it.
Yeah.
And when I was engaged, I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. I was telling everyone I can't do this anymore. That's when I realized that I can't live the life that they want me to live. I have to live my own life.
Yeah.
I came out of that situation like very hard, but what society had for me, because, maybe you have an idea. I'm from Iraq, and it's a Middle Eastern country. And when you get divorced, that's like you bring shame. Exactly. When you bring
Which is
shame,
so dumb.
like when you bring shame to family. So that's how the whole entire family, because that was a city, very small one. My family and the entire city were looking at me like shame. Because
Yeah.
the guy,
Is,
especially the guy, my cousin was a doctor and he was a handsome guy. He was the only one in the entire community, entire family said, if she doesn't want me, let her go. He was the only one. But the whole family and like city was like, shame on you. He was a great person. So I was under a very big pressure and stress from my family, and whatever would happen in my family and in that time, they was like, that's because of you.
oh yeah, like you somehow got the blame for everything. Like somehow this one thing was the reason for everything that was bad, I'm guessing, right?
Exactly. So I was trying to go out of that situation. I was trying to go, but I didn't know how. I was trying to change my life. I didn't know how. So what I'm getting to is all of these things I have been through because I was kind of locked. I couldn't do anything. And I was dreaming of a big, like of something different, but I didn't know what was that. When you told me like you started by 18, I was like, by 18, I was broken and I didn't know what to do in my life.
Oh, I didn't know either. Just give you like a clear context of this. Like, I haven't even told you guys the other shit that went down at this point because like a lot of people don't know this. But up until the time I was 18, I tried to kill myself like 7 separate times. I should be dead. Like, in all honesty, I should be dead.
Mm.
But somehow I'm still alive. I'm like, thank the Lord for that one. I'm still here. But at the same time, like, and to give you guys, I didn't really actually go into this because there's 2 things that are quite interesting about the story. And sorry to interrupt here, and I'll show you how it like links back to yours. But and you know this, like, you can't really disobey your family as much. Like, and I have that too. If you don't listen to your parents, then somehow they like use religion. Because again, I am Muslim, so like that was used against me, which was funny as hell to me. But basically, around the time of 18, I remember coming home from the seminar and telling my dad, I'm going to be a copywriter. Because prior to that, my dad thought when I was working out with marketing, he was like, you're a scammer. You work in a pyramid scheme. I was like, no, I don't. Because I'm all about ethics and stuff. So my dad basically, when I told him I was going to be a copywriter, my dad went, let me show you something. So he went up. I told him, like, I write advertising. Apparently, that's what I do. My dad went up and pulled out this file. And this file had like, he was like, read these ads. So I started reading these ads. And I realized, and I was like, these seem familiar. He goes, yeah, they're your stories. They were like the things that used to submit to me. All those stories I used to make you write when you were younger, they used to go to my company. We used to mail them out. So like, that's why I say I've had experience since I was 12, because my dad used to take my stories and run with them. And when I turned 18, things just started, like, it wasn't like I came out the gate, made millions, whatever it was. I went through the hard path. Like, I basically picked up everything. It took me years to get to where I am. And I'll know that once I get to the point that I want to be and it'll just grow quickly, it'll happen. But that's 1. 2, and this is why I was going to say it's really funny to you and you would actually understand. My dad came to me when I was like, because I lived at home until I was 22. And then I left because I could finally afford to leave. But when I was 19 or 20 years old, my dad came into my room and we had a bit of an argument. And my dad said, you know what? I wish you would just listen to me and do what I told you to do and just quit this stupid copywriting business. It's not going to get you anywhere. You need to work a real job. So do you mind if I tell you the actual argument I gave my dad, which is why I say you should never have a religious argument with me?
Please go.
So the religious argument I gave my dad was, Dad, you know we're Muslim, yeah. And you know that in Islam, one of the prerequisites of our faith is that you believe in predestiny, meaning in the sense of everything is destined to happen in the way it's meant to happen. He's like, yeah. I was like, so are you, and I know I'm supposed to listen to you as my father, but at the same time, if my destiny is to walk down this pathway that God has put me on, does that mean by me listening to you means I go against God's will and what he's doing and that you are greater than God? And my dad went, fuck, I can't argue with you, and just walked outside. I knew I won that. Yes. That's
a very good point for me.
I always win. That's why I say I will find ways to win arguments because I'm like, that's amazing. Don't argue. I will find a way.
I have to learn a lot from you.
Going back to it, I totally understand because like you get shamed for who you are and what you do. And for those people that are going through that right now that might be listening to this, it's okay. All right. All I gotta say is don't give up on your dream and keep moving forward, because at the end of the day, realistically, you know what the number 1 regret is people have on their deathbed? I wish I did more. I wish I did more. I wish I did this thing. I wish I spent more time with my family. I wish blank.
That was the same thing that I wanted to share with you, because
Please.
I had under a lot of pressure in my life that I got to a point I was thinking about myself and all of the dream I have, but right now where I am, I can't do anything. So I tried to kill myself 3 times. 3 times I was on the yeah. I was there. I was down there, so broken that I wanted to kill myself. The only thing brought me back was one thing. I thought about something. One day, a professor of me in university, I was so broken, I was on exam paper and I didn't know what was written on the paper. I couldn't answer because I was broken and I was not feeling well. So the professor told me, that professor, I have never seen him my entire life in university. I don't know how he appeared in my class. He said, you. I said, me. He said, yeah, you. You are going through some hard time. I see that in your face. But one day, I'm sure you will be a successful person in this country, even in the world. And it was like, what the fuck is that man talking about? I had no idea. I came back and like a few months or 1 year after that, I tried to kill myself. And I was like, I was about to do it. The only thing brought me back was like, I remembered his words. And he said, so I told myself, if you give up right now, you will never have a chance. But if you don't, you still have, even if it is 1%, you still have a chance. 1% is not 0%, it's something. Yeah. So I didn't give up on 1%. I decided to block, like removing all the barriers in my mental blocks, the actual blocks. I realized that after that, the actual thing that was preventing me from moving forward, from working for my life, was not the family, was not everyone, like it was all the blocks that we created for ourselves based on those things we have been through in our lives.
Yeah.
So all of the things that we have been through in our life lead to the point that we're meant to be.
Oh yeah, like there's no point in your story, and I will tell this to anyone, if you're going through a hard time right now, a really good thing to realize is turn your life into a movie script and look at this, the point where the main character is going through a transformation. And by the way, this is something that no one tells you. Transformation is painful.
True.
Transformation is painful. Think about when you were growing up. If you didn't have growing pains, I remember the day that I woke up when I was 13 years old, I couldn't walk. Like I literally woke up and I was like, my back feels so locked. I can't even stand up. I don't know what I've done to it. And I was in so much pain. And my mom said to me, it's because you're growing. I was like, what do you mean? Your bones are getting longer. Your body's reforming. It's becoming a longer body. Because of this, you're going to feel pain. Transformation. It happens. And for those, like, I'll give you a perfect example of this. Mm-hmm. What you're going through right now, try and look at it objectively and surround yourself with people that show love to you. Because for me, up until I was 26, I thought I was hideously ugly. Like, genuinely, I thought I was ugly until I was 26.
Same.
It wasn't until I was, and you're gorgeous, by the way. By the time I hit the time I was 31, I understood how to accept myself. And I'm 32 now, but like it was only a year ago that I really found to fully accept myself, because it's an ongoing journey. As you get older, your brain starts showing you things that happened to you in the past and how you can get over it, because, well, you're not ready to get over it up until that moment. But the reality is, it's showing yourself love and compassion, because everything you've gone through will help someone down the line. Like, it just will. Even if you're not sure how it will help them, it will help them.
That's true.
So, and the longer you stay in the game, the more you can help people. And that's really what it is.
That's true. What's very important is to continue, to not give up on the hope. Like hope is something. Like if you have hope, like there's light at the end of the tunnel, like the way. If you just stop and go back, you will never see the light. But if you continue, go on, move on, you will see it.
Yeah. And sometimes you need help to see the light. So reach out to your friends and the people that love you. There's no shame in asking for help, by the way.
That's true.
There are people who go like, that's shameful. Fuck you. All right. I asked for help from my friends. Like, it's hard for me to accept help. That's like a me thing. But I'm learning to get over that, because we all need help from time to time. It's how we learn and move forward.
I agree with you, but at some point I don't, because I had a different journey, and I made all the changes by myself. Believe me, I did everything by myself. I saw no one. Like, by the way, when I got divorced for 5 years, no family, no friend, no one in my city talked to me. I was fully alone.
Shit.
Alone. I did everything alone. Yeah. That's why I think people can do it alone. It's much better. It's amazing to see people around. It's very amazing to have a great circle. That's why after that 5 years, I said, you know what? I have had a terrible circle. I'm gonna remove everything. So I opened door for myself to have a better circle, to know better people in my life. So it's important to have amazing people, positive energy around you, because it helps you to get to your next level.
It really
to the place to the place that you really want to be. If you are here, like your circle is in a different spot, like different place, they cannot come with you to here. If you want to be here and they are here, they cannot come, because you have to be in a circle that you look up to them, not they look up to you every time.
And you're equal to each other, because there's this is something I said to a friend very recently. It's the people in my life. I've got to a point in my life where I am so much myself, because that's who I am. I'm always me, and I'm consistently me. Even through the good and the bad, I'm always myself. But that reality of getting there, because I've never really been anyone else but me, and that's the thing. I've never had that fake personality. I've always been Adil. I've always been myself. The truth to that is, people who can't live in that same air as me, they suffocate. They can't live in the same space as me, because they can't keep up.
True.
And they drop off, and it's fine. And I wish them well. There are some of my friends that I've not spoken to in years. I was like, you're my best friend. I fucking love you forever. And I do love them forever. But we no longer see each other, because I realized where they are and where I am is so vastly different that we can't. It's like water and oil now. Like, we can't mix anymore.
That's true.
And it's fine. They've got their own path. They've got their own journey. They know who they are. I know who I am. I know where I'm going. We just have what it is. But to touch upon this as well, because again, I spent most of my life doing everything by myself. Again, very similarly, we can have a discussion about this off air another time. But like, it taught me a lot of lessons. But at the same time, once you understand how to rely on people, how to have interdependency, not independence or dependence, but interdependence, where you rely on them but don't need them, and they rely on you without you needing them. So essentially, you're a standalone pillar amongst pillars that stand and build something greater amongst yourselves. So you're no longer standing alone. By doing this and having it this way, you essentially create long-term relationships and bonds that basically work for everyone that's there, and it's beneficial to all. You'll keep growing. Never dim your light, because that's basically what kills you at the end of the day. And feeling hopeless right now, honest to God, the best thing I can tell you right now is pick up a good book that you feel is going to help you and start finding pathways. One of my recommendations for this is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius or The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Great. So the last thing I would ask you, what is the 5 book that you recommend for me and the audience?
It depends. What are you trying to do? Because there's like so many books that I have, as you guys can see. I've read like 80% of them, and there's more audiobooks. But like, what would you say, like 5 books for what reason? Is it for business? Is it for life? Is it for a mix? What are we doing here?
Life and business.
Ooh, okay. So the very first book I'd recommend is, of course, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Great book. Or if you want to find other ways of like looking at this, you can go Stillness is the Key by Ryan Holiday. So that's number 1. They're not in order. These are just books I recommend. The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, great book. One of my favorite books. I read it every single year, like after my birthday. It's the thing I do right after my birthday. The third book isn't a book, it's a series of books. It's by an author. It's Robert Greene. Basically read everything Robert Greene has ever put out, because it's genuinely the best shit you'll find out there for business, understanding people and what goes on. So 33 Strategies of War, 48 Laws of Power, the Art of Seduction, the 50th Law. Then I'd read Laws of Human Nature, then finally read Mastery. Mastery comes at the end. Like, he wrote it before he wrote Laws of Human Nature, but Laws of Human Nature, then Mastery. Read it in that order. It'll be a lot simpler for you in life. Then what you want to do next is you want to, I think that's like book number 4. Or was that 3? So I've said 3. All right, so 4. A really good book, number 4, is Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter by 50 Cent. It's one of my favorite books ever that's been written by someone, because it's all about understanding how your mindset shifts as you go on through age, and essentially you pick up different people's wisdom. I'm not going to put the Quran on this, even though I do recommend that's like my number one book, because it has like so many life things. But again, I know some people like religion. I'm like, whatever. All right, cool. If you want to read it, if you don't want to, don't. But the fifth book I'd recommend is, oh, it's really hard because it's only 5 books, but there's so many books I recommend. The fifth book, Green Lights. But actually, you know what? I'm going to give you I'm going to give you an alternative. For life, Matthew McConaughey, Green Lights.
Oh, I love that.
It's one of my favorite books. That dude has such a good voice. I love listening to it. It's one of my favorite books that makes me happy.
Yeah.
But alternative to that, I'd probably say probably one of the most influential books in my life is, I'm going to think this through because there's so many books that actually influenced me. And it's like, what was one of the ones that stood out the most? Oh, that was it, of course. Success Forces by Joe Sugarman, or The 7 Laws of Success. I think hold on. It's called... Oh my God, The 7 Forces of Success. That's the name of the book that he re-released. The original Success Forces is there, but The 7 Laws of Success is a great book. And just as a caveat to Joe Sugarman, if you can find it, Advertising Secrets of the Written Word, one of the best books in advertising you will ever pick up.
What was that one? Sorry.
Advertising Secrets of the Written Word. It's more to do with mail order, but it'll teach you everything you need to know about writing ad copy and how to do it, because Joe was one hell of a good coach.
I have one.
Yeah, it literally took me ages to find that book, but it's out of print. It's a really old book, and you can adapt it to today's day and age very quickly. It's a really, really good book. Right.
So, Adil, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for you're welcome. Thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate it. It was it was a blessing for me to have this time with you. Thank you so much. We will have another time talk, and see you guys on another podcast. Bye-bye.
Definitely. Take care, guys. Bye.